I want people to know the difference between teeth in a day and teeth in 24 hours, because there's a lot of misconception. They say that it's not safe, that we don't give them enough time to heal, that we're rushing everything. I want people to know the reality.
How do different dental implant methods really compare? From the timeline to the materials used, and even safety and healing. Well, I'm here with prosthodontist Dr. Blen to break down the key differences between two full mouth dental implant options: teeth in a day and permanent teeth in 24 hours.
Not knowing one of this difference could lead to an outcome that you don't want.
All right, Dr. Blen, let's start with the basics and talk about the timeline for both of these full mouth dental implant processes. And just to clarify, does full mouth mean like replacing all the top or bottom teeth or even both?
Yeah. So when you say full mouth, it means that we're replacing the whole arch. So it could be upper, it could be lower, or both at the same time.
Great. Well, let's talk about teeth in a day first. Can you break down what that process usually looks like, from maybe surgery to getting the teeth? How does that timeline play out?
What the protocol is, you make a denture, and then on the day of surgery, you know, they'll go ahead and extract teeth, put the implants, they convert its prosthetics. So what happened is they have the denture, they'll go ahead and drill some holes, they would attach some cylinders, they'll put it over, put some like composite resin, and they'll cure it, and then they'll take it out and adjust everything and then put it back. So it's like I call it a Frankenstein. You have a bunch of parts and pieces together, and they make sure that the patient is fighting. And then healing time. It could be 4 or 6 months.
And how many, like, they get this set of teeth after surgery. What is that made of? And how many, like, sets of teeth does someone have to go through for this process until they get that permanent set?
The prosthetic that they use to heal, um, it's made of acrylic, which is the same thing that the dentures are made of. And like I said earlier, is a Frankenstein. And how many do they have used? I don't know. When I did this, I had to. We had to adjust a blog on the schedule to fix that, to make new ones and to replace them and do this and do that. So in patients, that's the most uncomfortable thing for them, is that they have to come back multiple times just to repair that.
Right. I was going to say, that sounds like a lot more appointments going on.
What people don't understand is this: when you have normal teeth, biting force is 100%. Once you go into dentures, you go down to 30%. And once you get an all on four, you go back to 90%. So you're putting a denture material in someone who has a lot of biting force. And things, like I said, they're put together as a Frankenstein, and those excessive forces can fracture that prosthetic. And when that fractures, then there's a lot of things that can happen, but you want to fix that. And, I've done that multiple times before, before coming here, and it's just too much. You have to fix something,
Mhm.
fix it again, and do this, because you have to look not only the up and down, you have to look protrusive, and
Yeah.
back, forward, left, right. All those forces play a factor too.
When people go in for surgery or these follow-ups, are they usually going to one place that has everything all together, or can sometimes you go surgery somewhere, or this, like, what does it look like based on your experience working with it?
Well, it just depends on where you go, because you can go to places that they do one thing and they send you to a different place to get another thing, and then you have to go to a different place to get another thing. And there are places that will do everything together. I work with both, and I like the way we do it here, because I work with an amazing surgeon, Dr. Krieger. I mean, I love this guy. I know him, he knows me, and we can just work really good. And we can manage anything, and we're so like tuned with each other. You know, as before, you have to send it somewhere and you don't know who's going to be working, or who's going to be working, but you don't know how much experience this person has. So it can be just complicated. And like I said, if you have, you know, a procedure done in multiple places, then if something happens, then they're going to find out first where do they have to send you, and then you go there. And I think everything in house is just better.
So you said this process can take, up to maybe 4 to 6 months for the patient to heal, and can take even longer for people to get their final set of teeth. So, what happens with the teeth in 24-hour process?
After a patient finds out he's qualified, we have a process that we follow, and the process is to make sure that when we deliver the prosthetic, it's 100%. So, the patient will find out if he's a candidate, and he'll come back. So he comes back for something called a smile design. Smile design is when we're going to take an X-ray, we're going to take intraoral scans, we're going to take pictures, we take measurements, and with that information, we put into a computer. We make a 3D model. We have information of where the bones are, the joints, and that's how we can come up with a prosthetic that fits the patient, and we can deliver 24 hours later. But it's a lot of planning that we do to get there. So the reason why it's considered permanent or the final is because it's a final material. It's zirconia. Zirconia is super strong. So just to simplify the difference between PMMA and zirconia, PMMA or you know denture material is what we make dentures with. But zirconia is what crowns are made with. So most people that you see walking around, they might have crowns. That's zirconia. Zirconia is super strong, super, super strong. I don't want to go into the scientific of megapascals and stuff, but it's super strong and it can withhold strong forces.
You mentioned maybe with other processes, they might be going to different places to get this done and this done. At Nuvia, you mentioned, hey, it's all in house, right? So can you kind of talk about the team at Nuvia that makes it kind of all possible?
It's all, and I tell people this, it's all of us because Nuvia is one family. And here, our center, Austin, we have a surgeon, we have assistants, we have the front desk, we have the manager, we got the lab. Everyone plays together. When it comes to the prosthetic itself, it's us, the assistants, myself, doing the scans, the measurements, the x-rays, the pictures, and then we work with the lab. Our lab that is 100% ours. They only work for us, so they're really good at doing what we do, and they understand this. We send it to them. We have, like people who know how to design everything. We make everything 3D, and we get, a preview, and we can check the bite, make sure that everything's good. But that's pretty much how we work.
And why do you think getting permanent teeth 24 hours after surgery is important to the patient? Why does that speed matter?
You know, to me, the most important thing about giving the patients a strong material for the healing stage. Remember that I was telling you that the prosthetics break because of the bending motion that they have? Well, the micro movements can cause implant failure. Why can it cause implant failure? You have this two guys, let's call them two guys, like Pac-Man, right? One of them will eat the bone and the other one will form bone. And it happens to everyone. People who have osteoporosis is because the guy that is eating bone, it's doing it super, crazy. And this one is not forming as much. So bone density goes down. So let's say when you put the implant, these two guys will go and look at the implant around. They're like, I don't like this. So this guy will eat the bone. And that's called a soft stitch because he's removing the bone around it. I'm simplifying everything, right? Because there's more science behind it. But let's say he remove around it, and then that's the soft stitch. If your prosthetic breaks when you're in a soft stage, that's an issue because it can cause implant failures because of the micromovements. Now, this other guy will come back and he'll add a lot of bone. You are in a hard stage at that moment. If the prosthetic breaks, man, nothing happens. But the question is, how do we know when someone is in a soft stage or a hard stage? We know that in 4 to 6 months, we do testing to make sure that everything's integrated. But 4 to 6 months, everything's good. So once everything's good, then you're fine. But we want to make sure that you don't have any complications within that healing stage. That's why we give you something that is super strong that we know that has there's something called cross arch stabilization. That means that the forces are distributed equally, so they go up and down, left and right, and that's protected. They protect each other, mutually protected. They protect each other. We want to control everything as much as possible because if we control everything as much as possible, we minimize any complication, and that's pretty much the reason why I like what we do because we minimize everything. It's proven with the success rate that we have, and implant failure rate that we have here in Austin is like crazy little, but we try to control everything. Forces, biting forces, movements. implants, we compensate for like something that's called a AP spread, like the cantilever. We don't want to have something. We just control everything. We're freaks when it comes to making sure that everything's perfect. And when we think about what we do here at Nuvia or us, we're thinking about a lifetime. We're giving you something that you're going to function, that is going to be your day to day. We're giving you something that is going to give you quality of life.
And I feel like also a huge benefit for patients as well, like you said, is a lot less appointments, it sounds like. And that's a lot of time spent.
You're correct. We don't want them to be calling us every day like, "Hey, my prosthetic broke. My prosthetic broke. This happened." We want to minimize all that. We want to give them quality prosthetic, quality healing time, quality everything.
So I know another question people might have about the permanent teeth and 24-hour process is, okay, how much does this cost? And we will talk later in this episode a little bit about it and how patients are affording it. But I do want to point out that if you are curious, there is a dental implant cost guide in the description below that you can download and get a clear picture of what it could look like. I kind of want to talk a little bit more about the healing because I have heard some people out there say, hey, 24 hours is rushing the process. It's not allowing for this proper time to heal. But before we get into that, I do want to understand a little bit more about this the teeth in a day method. I've recently seen these conversion dentures that you talked about being called healing teeth or even premium healing teeth. But you did mention that they're made from this like acrylic material, right? So do these healing teeth actually help the mouth heal? Or is that just kind of a term people use?
Everyone is going to go through a healing stage. The question is, do you want to heal in a Cadillac? Do you want to heal in a Fiat? What do you want to heal on? Because everyone is going to go through a healing stage. We just want to give you the best thing since day one.
People have also said, hey, gaps are forming with these Nuvia's permanent teeth in 24 hours during this healing process. So, why does it happen? And is this something that people should worry about compared to maybe the teeth in a day process?
No, because we're also patients. Some people do develop a gap, and some people don't. We have a lot of patients that don't develop the gap. But something I want people to understand is everyone can develop a gap, whether you get the prosthetic here, you get the prosthetic somewhere else. Now, why do some people get it? Because when you're healing, the bone and the tissue will reshape itself, and you might develop a little gap. Like I said, some people do, some people don't. And we know if that happens, we can compensate. And it might not happen now, but it might happen in 5 years, 10 years. And we know and we can compensate. That's why the prosthetic that we have, I believe, is so good because they don't have to get a new one. We can use the ones that I have and just add a little bit and boom, that's it. But, we can compensate.
So, this is not something that people should be worried about.
The most important thing is the implants healing, which they're going to heal, uh, that your bite is good, that everything looks good, that everything's where you want it to be. A little gap, it's easy peasy. It's nothing. No,
And it's not something that's specific to Nuvia's process either, you're saying it could happen really with any process that you go through.
100%.
I do wanna also ask, what can you really expect to be eating with that conversion denture versus maybe Nuvia's permanent teeth in 24 hours? What does that look like?
With or prosthetic, they just have to be in a medium soft diet. So I tell them you can cut it with a plastic fork, you can eat it. Well, pasta, you can eat all the pasta that you want. I love pasta, so pasta is good. You can eat ground beef, ground chicken, sloppy joes, soul burritos, soul tacos, all these things. So they're not limiting themselves to liquid diet or super soft diet for 4 months. No, like I said, because the prosthetic that we give them is so strong, they can do a little more.
Well, now that we've talked about the healing, let's talk about, maybe long-term success and maybe even how patients are affording processes like this. So when it comes to the success rate of traditional dental implant methods versus this new way that Nuvia is doing it, how does that compare?
Well, the national average, I think, is 94 to 98%. And here at Nuvia, with, all the prosthetics that we've done and all the implants that we have placed, we're like a 99.1. With It's significant. And I believe, this is my personal opinion, I believe it's because of the prosthetic that we gave. Every time you interrupt that healing, things can go wrong. Prosthetic break-in, excessive forces. Implants don't like it. They're like, no. Uh-uh.
What about the breakage rate then?
The breakage that we have is 0.2%. We have warranty for that, and but it's just super strong. It's a super strong material.
All right. Well, the next question here is when it comes to paying for this, obviously cost is a huge thing when it comes to dental implants, people wanting to get it. They're like, "Oh, this might be too much for me." So how are patients affording it at Nuvia?
Well, my cup of tea is not sales, right? But I know what patients know. And I know that when they come in here, they come for the consult and they do all these things. But one thing, and the beauty of this is that they have people who will lend the money, like lenders, and they can afford the payments through that, because we help them out to find the money. But just not that, one thing I really like about Nuvia is that we tell patients the cost, and the cost is the cost. There's no hidden fees. So they're not going to be paying for, if we have to put more implants, they're not going to pay for that. If we have to do bone grafts, they're not going to pay for that. If we have to do something, they're not going to pay for that. We are transparent with the fees. This is how you're going to pay, and that's it. You're not going to be surprised later on, and they're like, oh, from this prosthetic to this prosthetic is going to be this much, or from this to this is going to be this much. No, we don't. It is what it is, and that's what you pay, and that's it. So that gives people peace of mind. Other places that used to work, if you break the prosthetic, the provisional, we're going to give you another one, but you're going to pay for it. You have to pay for it because I don't know if you were eating what you were supposed to be eating or not. Oops, you have to pay for that. Other places we charge you per implant, so we're going to put so many implants. This is how much you're going to pay. You need six, well, you pay for six. You need four, you pay for four. Regard, this. Oh, you're going to get this material, you pay for this. Or you're going to get this material, you pay for that. No.
So, I know you did mention financing. So there are payment plans available, but people might be wondering, okay, how much is that? Where would you suggest they go to find that information?
Well, we have a cost guide down below that they can click and they can see all the information that they need, or they can come in for a consult and they can get more accurate numbers, and they can see if it works for them, if it doesn't work for them, but also they can find out if they need the procedure or not, because that's what we do at the beginning. We're just you know doing an exam, making sure the patient needs this, look at the bone, look at all these things, and that's the best way to find out, looking at the guide or coming in.
Well, last question I have for you is, Dr. Blen, you could choose to work anywhere. So why Nuvia? Why do you trust this 24-hour process so much every single day?
That why I love Nuvia, to be honest, and I love Nuvia not just only because of what we do, because I know that we do everything as perfect as possible to our abilities. But I know that everyone here cares about every patient that comes in through the door, whether it's here in Austin, whether it's in Florida, whether it's in New York, whether it's in Utah. I know everyone cares. And I know even the guys that own this company are amazing, and they do care about the people, and they really want to give them the best. And that's why my mother has a prosthetic.
Dr. Blen, I want to thank you for helping clear the air on the differences between teeth in a day and permanent teeth in 24 hours so people have a better understanding of what to expect and what might work best for them. So, if you're watching, don't forget to download that dental implant cost guide. And until next time, keep smiling.